So we're going to actually call up Dr. Dan Britt for a presentation, so we can just line up his slides.
Thanks a lot. My name is Dan Britt. One of the things about working on asteroids is you tend to be very poorly paid. That's the reality. But the nice thing is that if you do enough work on asteroids, they name an asteroid after you. In fact, there are 4 professors at UCF with asteroids named after them. I'm 4395 Dan Britt. Now I'm actually a geologist, and geologists who work on some places can get mountains or rivers or things named after them. But the rule is on Earth you have to be dead. And I don't want to go that far for an asteroid. So it's nice. This is one thing that you can actually have named after you and you're still alive. I also run a thing called CLASS, the Surface for Lunar and Asteroid Surface Science, which is a NASA-funded institute to study asteroids. And what I'm going to do is just briefly talk to you about asteroids and the stuff that falls off of asteroids called meteorites. And so asteroids are small, naturally formed, solid bodies that orbit the sun and show no detectable outflow of gas or dust. There's basically, the range in composition is from chunks of steel to soggy dirt clods. So almost anything goes into the asteroid composition. The geography, this is the location of asteroids as of this morning. Sun is there. You are right there. That's Mars, Earth, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter. The green is the main belt asteroids. The red are the near-Earth asteroids. If you're worried about the profusion of red near the Earth, well, tough. The good news is that the ones that have solid dots are the ones that have well-known orbits. The bad news is that the open dots have poorly known orbits and will probably be lost. We discover these things all the time. We manage to retain a few of them, lose the rest. It's only bad if one of them whacks into Earth, which is a problem. That happens occasionally. So that's the inner solar system. You go to the outer solar system, there are still more small bodies. Because really, I'm a lumper rather than a splitter. I think that anything that's a small body is fair game. The blue are comets. The red is the Kuiper Belt. The white are what you call Plutinos. That's Pluto over here. So that's no longer thought of as a planet by some. I happen to be on the New Horizons team, so I don't ascribe to this notion that Pluto is not a planet, because they pay me lots of money. But you can argue about what is a planet. The whole thing is, this is yet another belt of small bodies. And the Pluto mission is actually going to go after one that's right over there next. And we're working on that. So, geography, and then you go farther out, you get the Oort cloud, which is the source of the comets. And this extends about 100,000 astronomical units away from the sun. And so basically, the space is filled with small bodies. And these small bodies go really out to where you start getting the gravitational influence of the next planet. So they're all over the place, and occasionally these things get perturbed into the inner solar system. So, asteroids. That's the largest asteroid right there, 4 Vesta. And they go down in size very rapidly to very small things. So, rocky leftovers, original planet formation. The largest is about 1,000 kilometers in diameter. The smallest you can probably hold in your hand. Small stuff is more common than big stuff. If you add up the mass of all the asteroids, it doesn't add up to even the smallest terrestrial planet, not even close. And that's the mass. That's just the distribution of the mass. Notice that that's the largest asteroid, second largest, third largest, fourth largest. The first 4 asteroids have half the mass of the asteroid belt. They can have funny shapes. So this is a 200-kilometer long dog bone. There's actually it's very interesting. It's also solid metal, so it's very weird. Jupiter affects the asteroid belt. The gravitational influence of Jupiter is the reason why you don't have a planet in that zone. You basically get 3 types of general asteroid composition. You get soggy dirt clods, this stuff, very dark stuff, brighter stuff that's essentially stones, and chunks of metal, like that. So these are the cores of differentiated asteroids. So if you have the core of an asteroid in your hand, obviously you don't have the asteroids still in the asteroid belt. They break apart, they run into each other, they're beat to hell. That's the way it works. Occasionally the asteroids whack into Earth. If any of you have been to Meteor Crater is a mile across. You can't actually see the visitor center for scale over here. You get impacts all the time. The sad news is that you get a kiloton-sized explosion in the upper atmosphere about once a month. When the Air Force put up the Defense Support Satellite System, which was designed to detect nuclear explosions in the atmosphere, they were actually freaked out because you were getting kiloton-sized explosions all the time. And they went to a guy at U.S. Geological Survey by the name of, I'm blanking on his name right now. That's what happens when you're old. Gene Shoemaker. And they said, what's going on? And Gene said, well, those are just asteroids running into the Earth. And I've written all these papers that predict that. Thank you very much for proving my point. And they said, well, that's fine, but this is top secret. You can't release any of this data. And Gene Shoemaker was annoying in scientific meetings because he would get up after somebody had given a talk and he would say, you're wrong. I can't tell you why. And he could get away with it because everybody knew that he had access to this great data. So you get somewhat larger than 20 kiloton explosions every now and then. This one was about 20 megatons. This one was in Tunguska at the beginning of the 20th century. That was probably about 5 megatons. And just so that you you remember that this can actually happen to you, this was a couple of years ago over Russia, 500 kilotons. 500 kilotons does sound like a big explosion to me. So, what you also get are meteorites. And of course, there are some ways that you know that meteorites fall out of the sky. Like you see the hole in your roof. Or it smashes your mailbox. And so how do you recognize a meteorite? Well, to start with, if you notice that there's a hole in your roof, that is usually a strong indication. Although it's not perfect. I have the local franchise for identifying possible meteorites. And I probably looked at 300, and only one has actually been a meteorite. And I actually had one person come in and with a meteorite that came through the roof of her barn. And it wasn't a meteorite. Somebody had actually dropped a rock from high up on her barn. So, what you do is you get lots of very human stories. I won't bore you with too many of them. Anyway, so if you want to look at, if you want to identify a meteorite, look for fusion crusts, because this stuff has been cooking around the solar system and encounters the atmosphere at somewhere between 20 and 40 kilometers a second. So 90% of its mass burns up in re-entry, or in entry into the atmosphere. And so what you're going to do is it's going to be covered with a thin glassy crust. That's called fusion crust. It's going to be pitted because of the aerodynamic passage. And so you're going to have these scallops in it. It's going to have metal. You don't get free metal on the surface of the Earth except in 3 geological locations, none of which are close to Florida. And so if it has free metal, it's probably a meteorite. And the other thing is that it has the sand of the solar system. It has what are called chondrules. Chondrules are what make up pretty much originally all the rocky planets. And so, how many meteorites do you find in Florida? Well, the way it works is you look at the statistics. And somewhere around 8 kilos of meteorites, 9 kilos of meteorites fall every year in Florida in about 15 major events. And since the advent of European settlement, back in the 1565, we recovered 5 meteorites in Florida. So you probably walk by meteorites during your lifetime. Just keep your eyes open. Thank you very much.